Good morning and welcome to this beautiful day in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We are here to celebrate Harvard Alumni Day and the 154th annual meeting of the Harvard Alumni Association. My name is Nancy Sinsabaugh. I'm an alumna of the college class of 1976 and the business school class of MBA class of 1978. We are here in Harvard's Tercentenary Theater celebrating the second part of the oldest recurring outdoor ceremony in the Americas, another celebration of the joy of learning. Bill, I'm so happy to be with you today. Here's my friend Bill Horton of the great Harvard class of 1977.
Thank you, Nancy, and welcome to everyone. It's been a difficult time for the world over the last year, and certainly Harvard has known its share of difficulties. But today we celebrate, in a beautiful sunny morning in Cambridge, Harvard alumni and its global community. So thank you for joining us today. And we bring this broadcast to you from our vantage point overlooking the ceremonies as they unfold. Today, being May 31st, 2024, we welcome Harvard alumni back to Harvard for the third annual Harvard Alumni Day, a day for and in celebration of Harvard's vibrant global alumni community. And we welcome you all to participate with us. We are live streaming today in the hope of bringing to you some of the enchantment of this gathering of alumni, and an event that benefits from centuries of history, Nancy will talk about, going back to the first meeting of the Harvard Alumni Association in 1840. This is the Harvard Alumni Association's university-wide and global event honoring and celebrating alumni impact, citizenship, and community. And we're joined today by a list of clubs and shared interest groups that have registered to do local celebrations. So those of you in the Tercentenary Theater today will be joined by those celebrating local celebrations, including the Harvard Alumni Disaster Preparedness and Response Team, the Harvard Club of Chennai, the Harvard Club of Egypt, the Harvard Club of Serbia, South China, and as a special shout out to our friend Stephen Turbin, the Harvard Club of Vietnam. So if we look today, this day will be a highlight of our alumni calendar with the traditions and sense of connection that we enjoy, both with each other and with those who have gone before us. We are excited to welcome our alumni back to campus, to see them in high spirits, as you'll see on the cameras, and to celebrate our global alumni community. So Nancy, maybe it's a good time to give us some context for today's celebration.
As you know, Bill, Harvard College was founded in 1636. It was originally called New College, and the town of Cambridge was actually at the time called Newtown. It is the oldest university in North America. The names of the town and the college were changed in 1638 when John Harvard, a Puritan minister from Charlestown, passed away and left all of his books and half of his fortune to the college. The founders of the college were so grateful to John Harvard because the money he bequeathed to the college was enough to finally hire some scholars to teach the students. And on a day like today, Bill, you know, as the late poet and playwright Seamus Heaney wrote, on days like today, you can often catch a glimpse of John Harvard himself in the yard. I'm going to read the poem that Seamus Heaney, the late Professor Seamus Heaney, wrote for Harvard's 350th celebration. And the title of the poem is John Harvard Walks the Yard. A spirit moved, John Harvard walked the yard. The atom lay unsplit, the West unwon. The book stood open and the gates unbarred. The maps dreamt on like moon dust. Nothing stirred. The future was a verb in hibernation. A spirit moved. John Harvard walked the yard. Before the classic style, before the clabbered, all through the small hours of an origin, the book stood open and the gate unbarred. Night passage of a migratory bird, wing flap, gown flap. Like a homing pigeon, a spirit moved. John Harvard walked the yard. Was that his soul? Look, was that his soul sped to his reward by grace or works, a shooting scar, an omen, the book stood open and the gate unbarred. Begin again where frosts and tests were hard. Find yourself or founder here. Imagine a spirit moved. John Harvard walks the yard. The books stand open and the gates unbarred. And Bill, we had some shots of the John Harvard statue. Can you tell me the three mistakes about the John Harvard statue?
Well, is it truly an image of John Harvard, Nancy?
No, it is not. There are no existing images of John Harvard. So Daniel Chester French, who was a sculptor in the 19th century, I don't know who he used as his model, but he looks like a very, very much 17th century Englishman there sitting in the yard. And do you know the second?
What year was Harvard founded?
Harvard was founded in 1636, and what's the year on the pedestal?
1638.
1638. Now, maybe that's a mistake because Harvard was founded in 1636, but thanks to John Harvard, in 1638, the college had enough money to hire scholars to teach their students. So I don't know if that's meant to be the founding year or the year they actually started teaching students.
And the third?
What was the third? Do you remember?
I don't think it has anything to do with the shine on John Harvard's shoe, which is from all of the students and visitors who've come by to rub that toe for good luck. But today, Nancy, we celebrate together as some from the class of 2024 participate for the first time as alumni with their fellow alumni, those present here and those around the globe. And in fact, we have today a special speaker for our Harvard Alumni Day, Courtney B. Vance, who's a class of 1982, will give the keynote address and will also be addressed by Interim President Alan Garber. As Harvard students, we are reminded when entering the yard, as inscribed on Dexter Gate on Wigglesworth, that we shall enter to grow in wisdom, and when leaving, we are encouraged to depart and better serve thy country and thy kind. For newly minted alumni, this afternoon is the first step in a long journey of self-discovery and service as alumni, citizens of the university, and citizens of the world. So we would like to extend a particular welcome to today's 9,562 men and women who graduated last week and joined our alumni community in a glorious commencement ceremony. We also today welcome reunion classes who are with us today, including the great class of 1954, which is celebrating its 70th reunion this week, as well as all of those in the Crimson Society, having celebrated together every year now since their 50th reunion.
So, speaking of the great class of 1954, which some consider to be the greatest class, Harvard class of the 20th century, it had a number of well-known graduates, including longtime Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy, the Sadruddin Aga Khan, John Updike, Daniel Steiner, who was the longtime general counsel to the university, Walter Kaiser, who was an English professor and longtime director of Villa Itati, Harvard's outpost near Florence. Paul Matisse, who was son of the great painter, sculptor, Henri Matisse, I should say, and Arthur Lehman Loeb, who was a great financier of the 20th century.
So last week, Nancy, on May 23rd, the graduates of the class of 2024 were welcomed by President Garber to join the company of learned individuals. And on that day, principal speaker Maria Ressa, a journalist, media entrepreneur, leading advocate for freedom of the press, and Nobel Prize laureate, urged Harvard's newest graduates to join her in the fight against the enemies of democracy.
So, Bill, could we have camera B on the screen there? You beginning to see the alumni lining up for the alumni parade, which will begin at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And there you see the directors and leaders of the Harvard Alumni Association board on your screen. So,
and they're gathering in front of the John Harvard statue.
In front of John Harvard.
Which you so poignantly pointed out to us in your poem. So thank you for that, Nancy. Among those dignitaries is Baratunde Thurston.
Is that one of the greatest names of all time?
Yes.
Baratunde, I love that name.
Who's the chief marshal this year for the class of 1999. In a time-honored tradition, since 1899, the 25th college reunion class was charged with selecting a chief marshal based on criteria that include success in one's field, as well as service to both the university and the broader society. As this year's chief marshal, Baratunde Thurston is an Emmy-nominated host, producer, writer, public speaker, and New York Times best-selling author who uses his gift of compelling storytelling to inspire others to improve the world. And he will serve today as the chief marshal of this spring's Alumni Day celebration.
We will see him later on the stage, and you can recognize him because he has a very large red on white rosette, so you won't be able to miss him. But we will point him out when we see him as well.
Just a little bit more on Baratunde Thurston. As a philosophy concentrator, he was active on campus, very active as an undergraduate, participating in Black Students Association, the Harvard Crimson, Harvard Computer Society, Phillips Brooks House, among many others. And he has remained active as an alumnus and served as a keynote speaker for Unity Weekend in 2021.
If we could look at camera B again, every time we look into the old yard, we see more and more alumni lining up for the procession. So
these are all the classes graduating on their 5-year cycle, but also those classes in between.
Yes.
So they're
Yes, so all alumni are invited to this celebration today, but with a particular invitation for those who are reuniting. So this year it's classes beginning with the class of 1954, and then every 5 years, so 59, 64, 69, etc. And as Bill said earlier, there will be close to 9,000 alumni here for these celebrations.
And it's also very poignant that these are groups who will be, in short minutes from now, processing into Tercentenary Theater from the old yard. And we will welcome them as they come in and make some commentary then. But in the meantime, maybe we could talk a little bit about the history of reunions. In 1643 was the first Harvard reunion, when graduates of the class of 1642 returned to Cambridge to celebrate. In the early years of the college,
on the
there we
screen,
go.
excuse
Yeah,
me,
there we
Bill,
have some dignitaries.
on the screen now we have to the left Moitri Savar, who is the incoming HEA president.
And on the right, Allison Mendenhall, who 2 years ago was HEA president.
Yes, So as you can see, lots of festivities in the yard, and so many alumni have come back.
That's right.
So
Reunions then were a way for the leaders of the colony to show their support for the young college and its graduates. Alumni were invited to attend as well, and as the 17th century progressed, Harvard alumni soon outnumbered the other guests at this annual celebration of the joy of learning. And that is how this uniquely American tradition of commencement festivities and alumni reunions began, a tradition now shared by major universities around the world. Since the mid-17th century, alumni have returned to Harvard, as they do today, to celebrate along with the graduates and their families.
Bill, as you know, in modern days, we have had an annual Harvard Alumni Association meeting since 1848, when John Quincy Adams, the former President of the United States, was the first Harvard Alumni Association president. And for the third year in a row, today's annual meeting is on a different day than commencement. Gatherings have become so popular that this new tradition of Alumni Day allows us to accommodate more alumni intercentenary theater as they gather for their reunions. And we hear the music of the Harvard Band, which tells us that the procession is about to start from the old yard into Tercentenary Theater.
And there again on camera B, we see a shot in front of University Hall. You see the class of 1984 gathering to start, and many forms of of dress this morning, Nancy. We'll talk about that a little.
I love the banner in the bike helmet. That's quite original.
Right,
That's
and they're celebrating their 40th reunion this year.
So what we have now is commencement, which was last Thursday, which is dedicated to the graduating students, and today is dedicated to alumni, including those who graduated last week. Bill, what can we expect to see at today's annual meeting?
Well, as history deems, we have the Harvard Alumni Association annual meeting that will be brought to order by this year's Harvard Alumni Association President, Ty Moore, the class of '06. And as I said before, we're excited to welcome Courtney B. Vance, who's also a class of '82, as the Alumni Day keynote speaker. The program will also feature a report from Harvard President Alan Garber, who's an undergraduate class of '77, undergraduate class of '76, master's in '77, and a PhD. So a multiple alum, Alan Garber is. Wonderful person as well. And he will celebrate the 2024 Harvard Medalists. And he will also recognize the Chief Marshal of Alumni, Baratunde Thurston, and more. And just as a note, Dr. Garber succeeded President Claudine Gay upon her resignation as Harvard president in January 2024, and we're glad that he could step into the role. We're also welcoming to the stage Sarah Carmone as Associate Vice President and Executive Director of the HAA. And Sarah's an important person to us as alums. She joined the HAA in 2018 and served as Deputy Executive Director for 5 years. And now as Executive Director, she brings to this role a wealth of experience, knowledge, and positive energy, as well as a dedication to Harvard and its alumni.
And now we see members of the class of '74, camera B, the 50th college reunion, going to march into, ready to march into Harvard Yard. There they go, into the Tercentenary Theater. So where the alumni procession is beginning.
That's right. And just as a final note for Sarah, Sarah Carmone was the first woman, Nancy, to serve as the Harvard Alumni Association Executive Director. So maybe a few notes about our current HAA president, who will ring the gavel today for his last meeting of the Harvard Alumni Association.
So our current Alumni Association president is Ty Moore of the great class of '06. Ty comes from Cincinnati. Like me, he's a Buckeye. So, and I have to say, of all the people I've ever met in my life, he has more energy, constant energy, than anybody else. And in fact, his personal motto is "Be the energy." As I said, he's from Cincinnati. He's moved back to Cincinnati. He likes to focus on relationships, identity, and connecting people across their perceived differences. He's a serial entrepreneur and a life coach. He founded an organization in Cincinnati called Leadership Scholars, where adults mentor Cincinnati students from lower income families. And it's interesting, I find it so out of character. He was a classics major. Now, maybe that's my bias. Maybe I shouldn't have, had that bias, but he doesn't strike me as a classic major.
So Nancy, just to point out, we're seeing the procession through the middle aisle, turning the corner at Widener Library and coming towards the stage to take their seats as alumni. We see Scott Abel there in the front, who will be a Harvard medalist, awarded a Harvard medal
Class
today.
of 72, also from Ohio.
Okay.
So we have Ty Moore from Cincinnati, which is in southern Ohio. I'm from Newark, Ohio, which is central Ohio. And Scott is from Cleveland. So we have the entire state of Ohio represented here today.
So while we've got the shot of the stage there, Nancy, we can point out that we'll see on the right-hand side of the stage the class of representatives of the class of the 25th reunion. On the left-hand side of these, representatives of the 50th reunion class, and then amongst those, members of the Board of Overseers, the Harvard Alumni Association directors, and also former dignitaries. You'll notice in the front row, you'll see Paul Finnegan, who's a former president of the Harvard Alumni Association, but also treasurer of Harvard.
Back to talking about Ty Moore. As an undergraduate, he was active with City Step, the dance group, as well as Harvard South Asian Association's Gunguru Show. He also mentored students through the students in Cambridge and Boston through the Phillips Brooks House Association. He's been quite active in the Cincinnati Harvard Club, and he's a longtime member of the HAA board, and he's done a wonderful job this year as our president.
And especially during what are arguably very difficult times for alumni and for the university, but I think Ty's energy was one of the things, and his, I think, inspired leadership of alumni made a big difference. We do have an incoming Harvard Alumni Association president, and that's Moitri Savard, who is a physician and a class of 1993. And she's committed to listening deeply, respecting differences, and finding common ground in shared values. As a family physician, Dr. Savard employs a holistic approach, focusing on the emotional and psychological, as well as the physical aspects of health, by asking questions and listening carefully.
Bill, I want to point out on the screen, I've never seen this before. We have a balloon, 2 balloons, representing with the numbers 84. So it's the class of 84's 40th reunion they're celebrating today, and I've never seen a class bring in a balloon. My guess is that's going to be a new tradition for these events.
Good branding, class of 84, so that's great work. So further on Moitri, as she gears up to begin a term as president of the Alumni Association on July 1st, she sees clear connections between her professional life and her new role leading the Harvard Alumni Association Board of Directors and the global alumni community. As she said, physicians are taught to listen as their first step to solving problems. When you listen deeply, you can identify shared values, and she brings her ability to listen deeply and consider the whole picture to her work with the alumni community.
On the screen, we can see one of our oldest alums here today.
Right, and we'll speak a little bit more of that. I believe that's going to be George Post being willed in, class of 1945.
Yeah, he has a 1945 banner that he's carrying, so yes.
Right.
So he's being escorted up the main aisle to a front row seat here in Tenerife
Right, so he will be
Theater.
celebrating his 79th reunion
Oh boy,
this year,
that's
Nancy.
amazing. That is amazing.
Yep.
May we all live so long, Bill.
That's right.
So, Bill, can you tell us about today's run of show?
Sure, I'll go through briefly because our viewers will see the action unfolding. And as the gavel comes down for the alumni meeting, we'll have an acknowledgement of the senior alumni in the alumni procession after the welcoming remarks, introduction of the current and the incoming HAA presidents, introduction of the chief marshal. Sarah Carmone will do a recognition of volunteers. And then we'll have a very special performance today. This is by a combined choral group that's made up of the Harvard University Choir alumni, Harvard Radcliffe Collegium Musicum Foundation, Radcliffe Choral Society Foundation, and the Harvard Glee Club have all joined together today and are back with us to perform Radcliffe, We Now Rise to Greet Thee. And also later in the program, Fair Harvard. Well, that'll be followed by a report to the alumni by the president of the university, Dr. Alan Garber, and then a special musical performance by Elliot Min, who's the class of 23, and Eugene Ye, who's the class of 25. And a very prestigious moment for this ceremony comes next, and that's the presentation of the Harvard medals, and we'll talk a bit about that later. And those will be presented by President Garber.
Oh, if we look at camera A, is that Baratunde? Yeah, there's Baratunde.
Good.
With the white circle on the red rosette.
And just as a reminder, he's this year's chief marshal from the class of 1999.
And he's talking to the dean of Harvard College, Rakesh Khurana, there on the stage.
And just to the far left of the screen is Tim Baraket, who is the current treasurer of Harvard, which means he is on the Harvard Corporation and will soon become the head of the Harvard Management Company, which manages the endowment for Harvard. So there you see a number of dignitaries on the stage, and as the ceremony unfolds, we'll close out with Fair Harvard and quick closing remarks from Ty Moore, and then he will gavel out the meeting for another year, Nancy. So maybe it's a good time here, Nancy, to look at the shields that we have in the trees, and you can talk a little bit about some of those shields. I think we see a couple of them in camera one. You see some of them right behind us when the screen comes back. There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
So you see the red banners with the shields on them. As some of you know, most of the houses are named after former presidents, and they initially started with Henry Dunster. The previous president was Nathaniel Eaton, who absconded to England with the endowment, so he is not, they didn't name a house after him. On the right with the arrows, we see Lowell House.
And then
on the
Adams
left,
House, that's my house, Nancy.
Right,
too.
on the left with the Oakleys, we see Adams House. So we proceeded with naming Harvard houses after Harvard presidents until it came to Samuel Hoar, H-O-A-R, and someone made a decision that Harvard would not have a house called the H-O-A-R house. Now, if we can look at camera pre, there it is. On the left, you see Leverett House, and that is my house. So you see the three bunnies, we call them, but they're three hare. Leverett is a long-standing English name, and Leverett in French means a young hare. So that is our shield. John Leverett was president from 1708 to 1724, so he died exactly 300 years ago this year. And he was also a politician here in the here in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and his father had been the previous governor. So it's great. For those of you who know about Playboy magazine, there were women who would, in the Playboy clubs, who would dress up as bunnies. And so we in Leverett House, we call ourselves bunnies, and it's the only time in my life I'm not offended when somebody calls me a bunny, because the men are also called bunnies, I will point out.
And as we see on the right is the banner, the shield for Kirkland House. And we move, yes,
That's
thank
Kirkland
you.
House,
That's Kirkland
yes,
House.
yes.
And then we move to Courier House.
Courier
in the
House
next shop, and
with the
next shop
yellow
that's lined up.
raglan tree. Yes, and then Mather is on the left. And it's interesting to note that both Increase Mather and his son Cotton Mather were presidents of Harvard, so of course we have to have Mather House. That was in the late 17th century, actually before John Leverett became president.
Correct.
John Leverett was also the first non-clergyman to be president of Harvard, and it was a reaction to the sort of tight Puritan hold on the college that both Increase Mather and his son Cotton Mather had on the college. If we can go to camera 5, we have a few other shields. Now, also in the yard are the shields for the graduate schools.
Right, so we see Harvard Extension School on the right, the dental school on the left.
Yes, and let's see, oh, okay, and then we see Adams House, the yellow one, also on the right. So I really love these banners because it makes the yard look so festive. And this time of year with the beautiful green leaves and green grass, and then we have our great banners. Could we go to camera 4, please? Yes, on the left we see the Kennedy School of Government shield, and on the right is Dudley House. So, I'm sorry, yes, that's Dudley House. Dudley House, as you know, Bill. And on the far right is Dunster with the deer heads and antlers. Dudley House is the house for students who live off campus.
Right.
But it's one of the Harvard houses we have today.
So here we're seeing another shot of the old yard as a lot of alumni have processed through, but here importantly becomes the 50th reunion class being piped in past John Harvard.
Yes, the bagpipe.
And again, 50th reunion class celebrating this year from the class of 1974.
Thank you, Bill. And we now see the 2024 version of the Alumni Parade beginning to form in the old yard and marching into Centenary Theater. On this day of alumni celebration, we come together to enjoy one another's company, to reminisce about our college days and graduate school days, and to remember those who have gone before us. During Harvard's bicentennial year of 1836, the alumni festivities were particularly exuberant. Ralph Waldo Emerson of the Harvard class of 1821 wrote about the annual Harvard Alumni Parade on that day in July of 1836. And here's what he wrote that evening in his journal. Cambridge at any time is full of ghosts, but on that day the anointed eye saw the crowd of spirits that mingled with the procession in the vacant spaces year by year as the classes proceeded, and then the far longer train of ghosts that followed the company of the men that wore before us the college honors and the laurels of the state. The long winding train reaching back into eternity. So Ralph Waldo Emerson saw 200 years of alumni as the ghost reaching back into eternity. In 12 years, we will have 400 years of Harvard alumni reaching back into eternity. I don't know about you, Bill, but reciting that passage gives me goosebumps. Maybe you could tell us about the oldest alumni who are with us today?
Sure, and I think for me, Nancy, what you've quoted Emerson as, it conjures the ghosts and emotes a strong sense of continuity. And I think that's an important thing about our community, that it's more about people and ideas than it is about time.
Now we see a view from Widener Steps. So Widener is the main Harvard library. It's the second largest library in the United States after the Library of Congress. and the photographers on the steps looking towards the stage, which is on the steps of Memorial Church.
And among those alumni today that we saw earlier George Post processing in, class of 1945, and among our Radcliffe College alumni, we have Linda Black, who's the class of 1951, Elizabeth Moses Merrow, who's the class of 51 as well, and also Charlotte Culp, who's the class of 1952. So we have a very strong representation from some of our earlier classes, and it's important to see this. And then we can see the sun dappling from the shot that you mentioned, Nancy, from the Widener steps onto the stage, and you can see the sun and how brilliantly lit this day is for people to enjoy the company of each other and the community. And among this community, last week, and here again we see more of that long winding train you talked about.
There's the long winding train. And pretty soon there'll be the ghosts, and you'll probably see John Harvard walking by
I think you have to be a little careful to find that. I'm not sure if our director can pick that one up, but we'll give him that challenge anyway. Last week, the university awarded 9,262 degrees to graduates from Harvard College and our 12 graduate schools. So I won't go through all of the numbers, but Harvard College graduated alone 1,742. The next largest group, and this is encouraging, is the Harvard Extension School, which graduated just over 1,500 students. Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, 1,293. The Business School graduated just over 1,000, and the Law School graduated just over 800. There we can see, I mentioned earlier in the blue jacket, Stephen Turbin, who lives in Vietnam and comes here and joins us for our Alumni Association meetings.
He may get this year's award for the person who traveled the furthest.
Yeah, that could be. That's a long way around. And here again is the old yard, where we're still seeing the marshaling of alumni getting ready to process into the yard. So, Nancy, we welcome today degree recipients as they join this meeting of the global community of Harvard alumni. How is this not like commencement?
Well, I will say, even though this isn't a graduation ceremony, the view from here certainly looks like a Harvard commencement. And one of my favorite descriptions of commencement was written by the dearly departed former Pusey minister of Memorial Church and Divinity School professor Peter Gomes, who presided over the university from Memorial Church for over 40 years. And here is what he wrote about commencement. Someone, observing the rather casual dignity of the day, remarked that commencement is more like a lawn party than a ballet, and a less charitable but more astute observer suggested that the vast assemblage in formation in the old yard was very much like that wonderfully chaotic game of croquet with flamingos and hedgehogs in Alice in Wonderland. First-time visitors to the scene are rather horrified at what appears to be rank confusion. But then they remember that this is, after all, Harvard, where conformity, even of self-preservation, has been elevated to the rank of an original sin. That it all works at all is a tribute to patience and goodwill, and the general sense that, come what may, the day is to be enjoyed. So, Bill, we can expect a happy but chaotic scene this morning. In the late 19th century, at Harvard commencements, elephants cavorted on Harvard Yard, and mermaids and mummies also sometimes appeared, but I don't think we will see any of those today. And one more little known fact. Harvard's charter states that residents of Cambridge, of which I am one, have the right to graze their livestock in Harvard Yard. So one year on Alumni Day, I may show up with hungry sheep so they can munch on the grass during the festivities. And that would cause chaos indeed.
Well, Nancy, thank you. I'll wait for that day, though. That is a very special thought to keep in mind, along with those ghosts in our winding trail of alumni.
Bill, maybe you could tell us a little bit about our Alumni Day speaker,
Courtney B.
today.
Vance, absolutely. He's a graduate of the college class of 1982, a resident of Adams House. He's an accomplished actor, producer, and known for his decades-long career and award-winning roles in film and television. In addition to his artistic work, he serves as the chair of SAG-AFTRA Foundation, which provides educational resources for individuals pursuing careers in all facets of the performing arts.
And we can see on the screen the 50th reunion class is beginning its march into
That is a long,
Centenary
winding trail, isn't it?
Yes.
That's great. A great sunny day in the old yard. For those who are watching at home, we invite you into the enchantment of this ceremony.
One of the great things about having Harvard commencement here in Harvard Yard is that this is where the first commencement was held in 1642. And sometimes people say, oh, we should go down to the stadium. But I love the fact that we are here where people have been celebrating commencement for hundreds of years.
Right, and just a little further on Courtney B. Vance. He is a philanthropist, and he's also an ambassador for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. So very involved in his community professionally, but also as an alumnus. And I think as an accomplished actor, producer, philanthropist, he embodies creativity and the importance of giving back. Through his work, both on and off the screen, he demonstrates how one person's talents can make a difference. We look forward to hearing his insights.
If we could look at camera A, we see seated there Jack Reardon of the class of 1961, who was the longtime executive director of the Alumni Association. He's retired now, but it's great to see him. And next to him in the black dress is Susan Israel, a very active alumna from the class of 1981.
And to the top right of the screen, just below the top rim, just having taken us bending down now, is John West, who is an alumnus of the Harvard Business School and a former Harvard Alumni Association president. So Nancy, can you tell us a bit about the commencement speaker last week? I know that's not today, but there were some very important messages there, I think.
Maria Ressa, who gave the commencement address last week, is a journalist who has also won the Nobel Peace Prize for her work basically exposing the truth of the President Duterte's administration, his repression, and his attempts to subvert the democracy in the Philippines. She urged students to join her in the fight against enemies of democracies. And I'm going to quote her right now. The world that awaits the class of 2024 is the one in which misinformation fueled by artificial intelligence and social media is deepening conflict, distorting reality, and eroding democratic norms. That's why it's vital that students identify their values and hold on to them dearly. You don't know who you are until you're tested, until you fight for what you believe in, said Reza. Character is created in the sum of all the little choices we make. If you're not clear about your values, you may wake up one day and realize you don't like the person you've become. So choose your best self. And she urged the graduates, instead of being angry or afraid about the state of the world, that graduates reflect on who they are and what they stand for, and then go out and use their Harvard degree to create the world they want to live in. I will quote again, Harvard says it educates the future leaders of the world. If you future leaders don't fight for democracy right now, there will be little left for you to lead. Bill, what were Alan Garber's thoughts about commencement?
Well, I'm just going to point out, if we can go to camera 3, we can see how we're now filling up the front portions of Tercentenary Theater. And what a great day this is, Nancy, for alumni to be together and explore each other and to have an experience with each other that some of them are reliving as we sit here today. So I think that there's a very helpful thought to continue on with last week's commencement, to think about what Alan Garber had to tell us last week. I'm not going to spend a lot of time today on that, Nancy, because Alan Garber will be addressing the Harvard Alumni Association annual meeting. But before Maria Ressa spoke, President Garber in his welcoming address acknowledged campus disagreements and the possibility for protests. It is their right to do so, he said, but it is their responsibility to do so with our community and this occasion in mind. And he also called for a moment of silence in recognition of global conflict and suffering. And Garber importantly then followed by saying, sympathy and empathy atrophy without exercise. So as I said, we'll hear from Dr. Garber in today's annual meeting. So while we're speaking about commencement, Nancy, we can't forget about regalia.
Regalia.
So that's a beautiful hat. If we can go to camera 7, I'll point out, Nancy, that's a beautiful hat that you're wearing today. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the significance of top hats and that hat in particular.
Well, Bill, you and I are both members of the Happy Observance of Commencement Committee, which was founded in 1869 because not enough alumni were coming to the Alumni Day. And so the top hats, you'll see the men wearing top hats.
Well,
Bill, maybe you can demonstrate yours.
Sure, an active representation. There we go. No rabbit today, Nancy, no rabbit today, but it will serve its purpose.
So from 1969 to the early 1980s, the men, it was only men on the Happy Committee, and they would wear the top hats, and they basically serve as guides for the crowds to make sure the classes know where they need to go, to show where the restrooms are, where there's water for people in the audience.
So I'm just going to point out, Nancy, I think between us we see one of those ghosts of that winding trail of alumni following us. Anyway.
So the men were recognized in their top hats. Currently there are 100 members of the Happy Committee, and women who were not required to wear top hats joined the committee in the 80s, and initially we had to wear white dresses, but then we women decided the black attire more matched the men's in their regalia. So, and also we have the La Follette Rosette, which is a rosette designed by, if we could go to camera 7, you see the rosette, which indicates I'm a member of the Happy Committee, and it was designed by Ellen La Follette of the great class of '54, who would be celebrating her 70th reunion, except she passed away a few years ago. But she designed these based on the cockade that Revolutionary War soldiers wore on their tri-cornered hats. And beginning in 2013, women have been invited to wear their own version of the top hat, like mine, which I had the privilege of designing this hat and the hats other women are wearing, complete with feathers recycled from birds raised and killed for food. So
but there's a story here, Nancy. What's your anecdote? How did this actually come to be?
So it must have been about 2006 or 2007, I was supposed to be on duty for the Happy Committee at 6:30 in the morning. And I arrived at Thayer Gate, and the security people would not let me in because my ticket said 6:45. So I had to stand by the gate as all these men in their top hats just walk through the gate without showing any kind of ticket. And I said, that is not going to happen again. So I happened to be shopping for a dress that fall, and I saw this red hat with red feathers, red top hat with red feathers. I should say crimson top hat with crimson feathers, and bought the hat, put on the black ribbon and the black feathers, And since then, I've never had trouble getting into the yard on commencement or alumni day. So many women ask me to could they get a hat that, and I think it's really significant because women are more visible now if they have hats on. So people know that they too would have answers about where is the water and where do I go and where is my seat, etc. So that's the origin of the hats. We found a milliner in Jamaica Plain who was willing to make these top hats, but he also made a version which is a fascinator, and you'll see some of the women in the yard today wearing the fascinator rather than the top hats. But that's the story of the top hats.
Well, congratulations, Nancy. Another breakthrough. So there's much to celebrate at Harvard on this beautiful day. What's been a highlight for you in the past year?
I had the good fortune to run into Dean William Fitzsimmons, who is our longtime Dean of Admissions. I ran into him a couple of weeks ago. So once Harvard knew how many students, what the yield was. So these are students who were offered admission, who accepted admission to Harvard. Now, there was some concern last fall because the early admission numbers, early admission applicants were 17% fewer than the previous year. But with the regular admissions, they made up for that. So in fact, the applicants are only, we only had a couple thousand fewer than last year. And this is the fourth year in a row that Harvard had over 50,000 applicants for 22,000 spaces. Now, there's a belief out there that it was the October 7th unrest, the attacks and the Gaza war and some of the protests that were happening that meant people weren't applying. But in fact, Dean Fitzsimmons said that he thought there were other factors at play. First was a Supreme Court affirmative action decision that went against what Harvard was doing. And secondly, that in addition to the Common App, this year Harvard required applicants to write a couple of their own essays. And so he really attributed to the decline in early applications to students who didn't know they were going to have to write a couple of additional essays for Harvard. But we're happy to say that Dean Fitzsimmons told me that they had the highest attendance at Veritas, which is the weekend where accepted students are invited to come to Harvard for a weekend. Highest attendance of Veritas ever, and we had a admissions yield of 84%. So it's really wonderful that there are so many students who applied again, who applied to Harvard, and will be members of the great class of 2028.
Right, and we would be remiss not to give a shout out to all of those of you who are listening today who are either current or future alumni interviewers for Harvard College. And very grateful for that service and the time that you put in interviewing high school students who are applying to Harvard and providing the admissions committee with some background on those students. Very important volunteer work that's done around the world, Nancy, not just in the US, but in my home country, Canada, and I know in other parts of Europe, Africa, and Asia.
So we have just learned that the old yard, all the alumni have left the old yard and are processing into the tercentenary theater, and the ceremony should begin in a few minutes. You see, there is the 50th reunion class progressing up the aisle. So the program will begin in a few minutes.
Right, and we'll begin, as we see on camera B, highlighting the steeple of Memorial Church. So we'll see those bells ring, and that'll mean it's time for us to prepare for the meeting, Nancy. But just to follow on your admissions ideas, there was also an important Supreme Court case which was heard in the fall of 2022, and a decision that was handed down in June of 2023, and that issue was whether Harvard discriminated against Asian Americans in its admissions process, and if so, whether that violates federal law. With that decision, Harvard and other institutions can no longer consider race in admissions. And the college continues, though, to weigh all of an applicant's qualities. As you mentioned, Nancy, expanding the number of essays, getting students to tell more about themselves is part of that. And this holistic process that considers the strengths and weaknesses of each candidate. And Harvard College has also reinstituted standardized test scores. So we'll see all students applying for the fall, in the fall of 2025. That's for admission. And there had been, until that decision, a test optional policy for applicants through the class of 2023.
So, Bill, as we are about to hear the bells that signal the beginning of the meeting, I wanted to talk for a minute about Radcliffe.
Great.
So, people often ask, how long has Harvard been co-ed? Well, I'm about to tell you the story. So, in 1879, a number of Harvard professors founded the Society for the Collegiate Instruction of Women, and essentially they hired Harvard professors to give lectures to women only. The name Radcliffe comes from Anne Radcliffe, Lady Molson, who was the first scholarship benefactor of Harvard. In 1643, she provided the first scholarship funds for Harvard College.
Sorry,
Yes.
Go ahead, Nancy. If we go to camera A, just quickly, we can see a picture of Ty Moore just stepping off the stage.
Oh, there he
That's
goes.
current
He's
president,
in a pink shirt. You can't miss him.
and embracing one of the former presidents
Marty Grasso.
of the Harvard Alumni
Right,
Association.
right.
Sorry
So
to
there
interrupt,
goes
Nancy.
Ty.
Yeah. Oh, there's those. That's Ty
High
Moore.
energy Ty, he just can't sit still. Anyway, Radcliffe, as I said, was named after Anne Radcliffe, the first scholarship benefactor of the college. It used to be that the admissions numbers were Harvard 4 men to every woman. And during World War II, instead of hiring professors separately, because so many professors went off to war, they started having co-ed classes, imagine that, where professors taught men and women the same time. In about 1970, the houses became co-ed,
Early
so women
70s, yeah.
started living in houses. I lived, as I said earlier, in Leverett House. Admissions were combined in 1975, so there was one admissions committee. I applied to Radcliffe, you applied to Harvard.
Correct.
Beginning in 1975, with the admissions for the great class of 1980, the ratio of men to women dropped to 2.5 to 1. And now, as you know, it's about 50-50 men, women. One year there'll be a few more men, the next year a few more women, but it's basically equal. And in 1999, Radcliffe College became the Harvard Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study, inviting scholars from around the world, scholars, researchers, artists from around the world to come spend a year here in Cambridge.
So I think
last Friday. We still have a Radcliffe Day the day after commencement, and this year's Radcliffe Medalist was Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who was a graduate of Princeton. If she'd come to Harvard, she would have been my class, the class of 1976. And then she graduated summa cum laude and first in her class at Princeton in 1976. And then she went to earn a JD at Yale Law School. And she was editor of the Yale Law Review Journal. She was an assistant district attorney, then a judge, a federal judge, then a federal appeals court judge, and she was appointed to the Supreme Court in 2009. So we were very happy to give her the Radcliffe Medal last week.
That's a special day, and I think it's important that our entities are merged, Nancy, and that they each have their own specific identity going forward.
You see the numbers 84 floating in the wind there.
Good.
Silver with crimson and black balloons below it.
Now, as we approach the gaveling in of the annual meeting, I'm just going to point out something I mentioned before, and that was that there will be Harvard medals presented. And just briefly, the medalists this year are Scott Abel, class of 72, who's been an alumni leader of the university for more than 30 years in multiple roles and a great contributor to us. And?
From Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. You had to get that in, Nancy. That's good.
Yes, I did.
That's good. And also included today is Katie Lapp, Catherine Lapp, who's an instrumental leader of Harvard's administrative and operational activities, serving as executive vice president from 2009 to 2022. And importantly, she played an integral role in the university's approach to the COVID pandemic. And third, but not last, or least, is Lee Pelton, who's a doctoral candidate of graduate, doctor of the class of 84, who's an academic and civic leader, and is a longtime Harvard alumni volunteer. Served on the Graduate School of Alumni Association, Graduate School Council from 1998 to 2005, and on the Board of Overseers from 2000 to 2006. So, Nancy, you were great to let us know about Radcliffe Day and the awards last week. I think we can also point out that important for alumni was the election of our overseers and Harvard alumni elected directors, which results were announced last week. And for those of you who are unaware, Harvard has multiple governing bodies. The two more important ones are the Harvard Corporation and the Board of Overseers. The Board of Overseers has one of its main functions is to provide insight into what's going on in each one of the faculties through visiting committees. And the newly elected members of that board come from mainly from the U.S., but also internationally. And we're happy that this group of 5 elected this year joined another 25, so that we have on a 6-year cycle 30 members of the Board of Overseers. And the Harvard Alumni Association elected directors, we elected 6 this year, for now a total of 18. And we have people from North Carolina, from Maryland, from Brooklyn, from Massachusetts, but also from the Republic of Korea. So it more, I think, emphasizes, Nancy, the idea that we are a global community.
Could we look at camera B, please? Camera B. There we go. You see Memorial Church. Camera B, please. Okay. Well, anyway, I wanted to show the steeple of Memorial Church where the bells are about to ring against a brilliant blue sky on this beautiful day. There it is. So that's the steeple of Memorial Church. Memorial Church was built first to honor Harvard alums who died in World War I, and then World War II happened. So it honors those who died in World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and in the Vietnam War. I don't know, do you know if they put in honors of the Gulf, grads of the Gulf War? Oh, here we have Ty Moore in the pink shirt getting ready to gavel in. So thank you for joining us. And as soon as he hits the gavel, we will end.
Well, I see not everyone's seated yet, so we may have to wait a bit for Ty to gavel us in, Nancy, and we'll hear the bells ringing when that time comes. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Harvard Alumni Association.
As Bill mentioned, the Harvard Alumni Association is a worldwide organization, a global community of more than 400,000 people.
Could I interrupt just a second?
Sure.
We on camera A,
yes.
We have a picture of Brian Lee, who's the head of Alumni Affairs and Development, talking with Vanessa Liu, who's a member of the Board of Overseers. And Brian has ultimate responsibility for alumni for our group, so it ties in well with your Harvard Alumni Association description, Nancy.
So we have more than 400 alumni from around the world, from every state in the union and 70 countries worldwide. Students come to Harvard for a year or 2 or 7, depending on their degree program, and then they are alumni for the rest of their lives. As we say at the HAA, there are no dues and no escape from this global community. The face of Harvard has changed over the years, and today there are more women and more people who represent a wide range of cultures, races, languages, with ethnic, racial, geographic, and economic diversity.
Well, I think we're lucky that we include in that worldwide community over 200 formally organized groups. That includes Harvard clubs, which are geographically based, but also shared interest groups, which are more interest-based and cover a vast swath of interests that different alumni have, and bring them together in a different way. So that's over 200, almost 250 organizations around the world that are sponsored and supported by the Harvard Alumni Association, but I'll have to say are powered by those alumni who are in their specific areas, whether it's a shared interest group or a local club.
So as we say, Bill, the sun never sets on Harvard. So it's very interesting. And the other good thing is that now that we're all used to virtual meetings, any Harvard graduate is, you want to see?
So you can see on camera 2, we have Baratundi Thurston, who is directing the Harvard band, or whoever. There he is. He's making sure everybody's sitting down and playing that essential role of chief marshal.
Yes. So I was just saying, in this virtual world we live in, as a Harvard alum, you can log on to the Harvard Alumni website and you can attend any virtual meeting from anywhere in the world. It's really quite wonderful. So we're so lucky. And members of the Harvard community, through their clubs and SIG, are active throughout the world. You see something? Oh, it looks like
I think we are. We'll listen for the bells.
Flaring.
But we are seeing more. If you go to camera A, quickly, we see Mark Goodhart just leaving the screen now.
Here comes Ty in the pink shirt.
And with this, I think we're looking for that. Mark Goodhart is the secretary of the corporation, and actually, as you know, and a very important person in helping the university run the way it does.
So now you see the view from the stage where the speakers will be looking towards Widener Library. As I was saying, members of the Harvard community, through their clubs and SIGs, are involved throughout the world, building economic infrastructure, leading and participating in social welfare programs, fighting disease and poverty, and working to improve governance in their local areas. And of Harvard alumni, it has been said, to whom much is given, much is expected. And here they go.
And with those thoughts, we bid you farewell and look forward to seeing you next year, same week, same sunny day in Cambridge. Come and join us here, but if you can't, we'll look forward to seeing you live stream. Thank you.
Greetings. Interim President Garber, members of the Harvard Corporation and Board of Overseers, Mr. Vance, members of the faculty, honored guests, HAA Board of Directors. Fellow alums and volunteer leaders. Friends and graduates of the class of 2024. Welcome to Harvard Alumni Day and the 154th annual meeting of the Harvard Alumni Association. I am honored and overjoyed to be here with all of you today. I am Ty Moore from the Harvard College class of 2006. As president of the Harvard Alumni Association, the HAA, in accordance with the tradition set by our very first HAA president, John Quincy Adams, from the Harvard College class of 1787, I raise this gavel and call our 154th HAA annual meeting to order. From its origins, our Harvard alumni community has been anchored and enriched by Native and Indigenous peoples from across the Americas and around the world. The land on which Harvard is situated has been a place of learning for millennia, where Native and Indigenous peoples have passed on their culture, history, and traditions from one generation to the next. I acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land on which Harvard University resides, the people of the Massachusetts tribe and their elders, and honor the land itself, which remains sacred to the Massachusetts people. I acknowledge and pay my respects to the Nipmuc and Wampanoag peoples with whom Harvard has a long historical relationship. And I acknowledge and pay my respects to all other Native and Indigenous elders who are here today. The Harvard Alumni Association warmly welcomes all Harvard University alums to join us today for this university-wide global celebration honoring the impact, citizenship, and community of our fellow Harvard alums. Whether you are participating in our third annual Harvard Alumni Day in person here in Tercentenary Theater or remotely via the live stream, thank you so very much for showing up today. It is energizing and humbling to see everyone gathered here today and online all around the world. We have put together a dynamic and exciting program for you today, which I will kick off by sharing a few reflections from my experience serving as HAA president. Let me begin by saying, wow, what a year. Whether you're very engaged with Harvard or keep abreast of Harvard only once in a while, this year has likely taken you through an emotional roller coaster. Upon reflecting on this past year, with all the highs and lows, one major takeaway for me is the only way through is with. To move through all the polarizing headlines and challenges before us, we must work with one another to stay connected, engaged, and invested in our Harvard community, especially when we disagree. This year has underscored the critical importance of ensuring that all members of our community are heard and embraced. If that's not the case, we will witness our community become fragmented and disintegrate. To put this in more concrete terms, we can thrive by creating real community. Real community is a palpable vibe. It's the inner warmth that comes from knowing we're being embraced by those around us. The epiphany when we realize we're not outsiders, but esteemed contributors to the group. The peace of mind when we truly believe, this is my place, these are my people, and I belong. Real community is essentially a safe place where people can come to be who they are, share themselves with others, and know they will be respected and valued, regardless of their perspective and experiences. When real community exists, folks are inspired to stay connected, involved, and invested in the group. Harvard means so much to me personally because this was the first place I could truly be myself. My Harvard College class of 2006 embraced me, as did many other Harvard professors and students. And I flourished here as an undergraduate due to the real community I experienced. And the real community that I experienced at the Harvard Club of Cincinnati when I began attending events after I graduated is the reason I became an engaged volunteer, seeking to continue to foster such an environment for other alums. What helps build real community? Being legitimately curious, engaging in open dialogue and discussion, and seeking to truly understand others' perspective and why they believe what they believe. Additionally, having an open mind, embracing different points of view, and appreciating and accepting the complexity and nuances of every human being. Now, if you are classically inclined, you can keep in mind a modified version of a quote from the ancient Roman playwright Publius Terentius Afer, "Homo et Harvardianum alum sum, humani nihil a me alienum puto." I am a human being and Harvard alum. I consider no part of the human experience foreign to me. This quote encourages us to embrace our capacity to understand and connect with any fellow Harvard alum. As you celebrate Alumni Day and this entire reunion weekend, I challenge you to create real community by asking your fellow alums, what is your Harvard story? how has Harvard shaped you? And what does real community mean to you? One of the greatest gifts of our community is that it spans several decades, from our most recent graduates all the way to our most seasoned and eldest alums, several of whom are here with us today. Please join me in warmly welcoming Linda Black of the Radcliffe class of 1951, who will turn Linda will turn 96 in December. And from the Harvard class of 1945, celebrating his 102nd birthday this fall, is George Post. Woo! Also today, we would like to acknowledge 2 additional special members of our first 80th reunion. 8-0. Bert Huberman and Henry Ashworth from the great class of 1944. Woo! Together, they led the alumni parade this afternoon. Morning, but you'll forgive me. Thank you all for joining us today. It is a tremendous honor to celebrate our community with you. Your many years of engagement in the Harvard Alumni Association sends a resounding message to our newest graduates that their experience as Harvard alums is just beginning. Thank you. On July 1st, someone who embodies what it means to be a global citizen and true alum ambassador will become HAA president. She has meaningfully contributed to the Harvard community since graduating from the college as Radcliffe First Class Marshal in 1993. She is an impactful, courageous, and gracious leader in her class, on HAA's board of directors, and within the broader alum community. I have had the honor and privilege of closely collaborating with her this past year, and I assure you that the HAA will be in exceptional hands. Will the real HAA president-elect, Dr. Moitri Chaudhary Savard, please stand up? We are all in for a real treat. An important tradition for all 25th college reunion classes is the election of the Chief Marshal of Alumni. Our Chief Marshal this year is known for using his gift of compelling storytelling to inspire others to improve the world. Well-versed in topics ranging from race and climate to technology and democracy, he has been a real community builder since his undergraduate days at Harvard, where he was elected first-class marshal his senior year. This philosopher comedian is host and executive producer of a PBS television series on the American outdoors, author of New York Times bestseller, How to Be Black, and founding partner of the new media startup, Puck. It is my great honor to recognize our Chief Marshal for Alumni, Emmy-nominated host, producer, writer, public speaker, and member of the Harvard College class of 1999. That's what I'm about to. You all are so enthusiastic, I didn't even get a chance to say his name. But I love it. Baratunde Thursday! And I know I don't need to say this, Baratunde, if you don't mind, please standing. Please keep standing. I probably should skip this part because it already happened, but will the entire 25th reunion class please join Baratunde in standing and being recognized? Wow, right? I mean, that might have been the biggest cheer I've ever heard from a 25th reunion class. Class of 2000, you all better bring it next year. A dedicated member of our community, Sarah Carmone is the Associate Vice President and Executive Director of the Harvard Alumni Association. During her 25 years of service to Harvard, Sarah has held multiple roles in the University Development Office and served as Chief of Staff for former Harvard Provost Alan Garber. As a volunteer, I've had the great fortune of working closely with Sarah, who is a strategic, approachable, and enthusiastic leader who cares deeply about Harvard and our global alum community. I am thoroughly impressed with the way she thoughtfully listens to alums, develops a strong understanding of our community's needs, concerns, and opportunities, and both honors tradition and embraces innovation. Without further ado, let's hear from Sarah herself. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Carmode.
Thank you, Ty. It's hard to be called enthusiastic and follow Ty. So, President Garber, fellows of Harvard College, members of the Board of Overseers, members of the HAA Board, presidents of the graduate school councils, honored guests, and especially Harvard alumni, good afternoon. The past 8 months have been challenging in so many ways, not just for our campus, but for all who hold a special place in their hearts for Harvard. On behalf of the leadership of the university, I want to express our deepest gratitude for the unwavering support and invaluable contributions of all of our alumni volunteers. You are incredibly important to Harvard and to all members of our alumni community. Thank you. I want to take the opportunity now to share some of the notable accomplishments of this year's reunion planning experience. First, allow me to extend a welcome to our Harvard and Radcliffe College reunion chairs who are seated on stage with us today. This dedicated group of alumni volunteers has pioneered all aspects of the work involved in bringing more than 14 reunion celebrations to life this weekend for more than 10,000 fellow alumni and guests. Thank you. Also deserving of a special shout out is the leadership of this year's 50th reunion, many of whom have been involved in the reunion gift and program efforts for the last 50 years. And for all our 50th reunion attendees, in case you are not aware, you are now welcome back to campus every year for reunion as the newest members of the Crimson Society. And we welcome all our Crimson Society members here today. This year, we are delighted to have representatives from the classes of the early 1940s all the way through to the class of 1973. I want to extend special recognition and thanks to our Crimson Society volunteers. This group of dedicated alumni has been engaged and thoughtful partners. Thank you for all you do to make this a meaningful for your fellow alumni and as it is to those of us in the HAA. I would also like to congratulate the class of 1989, which has set a new fundraising record for the 35th reunion. There they are. The class of 1989 has set a new fundraising record for the 35th reunion and now finds itself the second most successful reunion campaign ever in terms of overall dollars raised. Just incredible. And to the class of 1994, which boasts the most gift co-chairs that a campaign has ever had. Also amazing. Please also join me in extending a warm welcome to the members of the HAA Board of Directors. In addition to our elected directors, members of the HAA Board represent alumni volunteers from the college, the graduate schools, and our global network of clubs and shared interest groups. We're very glad to have you all here. Please also join me in congratulating our newest HAA elected directors and members of the Board of Overseers. I hope you saw the results in last week's Harvard Gazette. We are grateful to these 11 individuals and to all of the candidates for their willingness to be of service to Harvard, and to each of you who cast your vote in the election process. In closing, I want to say thank you to the newest members of our alumni volunteer ranks, the leaders of the class of 2024 from across the university. Congratulations and welcome. To honor the contributions of Radcliffe College and its alumni, and to mark its historical significance for women and men alike, I am pleased to introduce the alumni of the Harvard University Choir, Harvard Radcliffe Collegium Musicum, Radcliffe Choral Society, and Harvard Glee Club to lead us in singing Radcliffe, Now We Rise to Greet Thee.
Thank you for that beautiful rendition of Radcliffe, Now We Rise to Greet Thee. It is now my pleasure to introduce Harvard's interim president, Dr. Alan Garber. President Garber began serving as interim president of Harvard University in January. Previously, he served as provost and chief academic officer of the university since 2011. In this capacity, he was responsible for oversight of all academic activities throughout Harvard and had direct responsibility for inter-school initiatives, faculty development, research policy, international affairs, and advances in learning. He is the Mallinckrodt Professor of Healthcare Policy at Harvard Medical School and holds teaching positions in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, Harvard Kennedy School, and T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Please join me in welcoming President Garber.
I hope that Harvard will always continue to be a place where free speech continues to thrive. Greetings, fellow travelers. What a long, strange trip it's been. With a special shout out to the class of 1974. And many of you will remember that you first heard those words on an album that was released during your first semester of college. And I bet they've gone through your heads many, many times since then. This has been a difficult year for all of us who love Harvard and who cherish our connection to this extraordinary institution and to one another. I cannot recount everything that's happened over these past 2 semesters. We would be here through Sunday, no doubt, but I can tell you that I have never felt more grateful for what usually happens here. We learn and we teach. We devote ourselves to research and to scholarship. We ask questions and more questions. We expand knowledge. We discover and innovate. And in too many ways to count, we make life better than it was yesterday. All of that happens every year. It happened this year, too. Across the university, students had the kinds of experiences and conversations with friends and with faculty that set the course of my future when I was an undergraduate. Across fields and disciplines, faculty had the kinds of insights and breakthroughs that expand the frontiers of knowledge and propel humanity forward. Despite challenging circumstances, despite conflict and upheaval, despite relentless scrutiny and public criticism, Harvard never stopped humming with the energy of possibility. When I spoke with the Harvard College class of 2024 last week, I focused on some of the ways in which they saw and seized possibilities over these past 4 years. And I encouraged them to look to one another for inspiration in the years to come, as you surely look to your own classmates and contemporaries. And when I spoke with the entire class of 2024 2 days later, I encouraged them to look to research universities for inspiration, because no other institution can do what they do to make the world a better place. Individuals and institutions. This gathering, our gathering, represents the power that exists at that intersection. Harvard is each of us, and each of us is Harvard. It is impossible to imagine all that has been achieved by everyone in this space, and the many more of us who are making contributions around the world. That thought of effort and excellence that surpasses measurement makes me incredibly proud to be part of this place, even when times are tough, especially when times are tough. I trust that our community can emerge from our trials better and stronger. To do that, we must work to value generous listening at least as much as informed speaking, to celebrate passionate discourse and reasoned debate, to champion decency, empathy, and integrity, particularly in times of conflict and division. We have, perhaps, taken these skills for granted as they have eroded in wider society. Now is the time to think creatively and ambitiously about how we can expand our efforts to rebuild a culture of civility and respect, a culture that empowers people to come together in a spirit of goodwill. We have just taken an essential step forward on this front. In April, Provost Manning and I asked a working group to consider whether and when Harvard should speak on public issues. On Tuesday, the group's final report was released. Going forward, in accordance with recommendations accepted by the president, the provost, and the deans, and endorsed by the corporation, neither the university nor its leadership will issue official statements on matters that do not directly affect our core functions. This approach is intended to preserve open inquiry and academic freedom by making it easier for all members of the community to express their views. It is a foundational commitment, and I am eager to see it implemented. I will have more to share with you during the coming academic year. All good things, I hope. I look forward to charting our path forward, keeping our community on firm footing, and ensuring that the university succeeds in its core mission of excellence in teaching, learning, and research. Finally, some words of gratitude. You, the alumni community, have been a source of wisdom, inspiration, and joy for me over the decades. Let me repeat, you, the alumni community, have been a source of wisdom, inspiration, and joy for me over the decades, never more so than in the past 5 months. When days seemed longer, when days seemed longer and stranger than I could have dreamed, there always seemed to be a Harvard person who had just said or done something truly wonderful. Islands of calm through change and through storm. Enjoy your precious time together and enjoy this beautiful place, which is better beyond measure because you are part of it. Thank you.
I'm just going to say what's on everybody's minds. What a remarkable demonstration of composure to be accosted and have something thrown on him in an aggressive manner is, and to still be able to stand here with poise and have the strength of mind, right, and the composure to still speak words filled with insight and appreciation for this brilliant alum community is again, it's beyond me. So thank you, President Garber. And now we will hear from two talented musicians who will perform Julie O. Elliot Min from the Harvard College class of 2023 is a beat boxer originally from Hong Kong. Eugene Ye is a cellist and rising senior in Cabot House, concentrating in applied mathematics and economics and computer science.
Thank you, Elliot and Eugene, for sharing your talents with all of us today. Each year, we recognize the winners of the Harvard Medal. The Harvard Medal is among the highest honors awarded by the university and recognizes individuals who have given extraordinary service to Harvard. This year's 3 recipients, who are all here with us today, merit this recognition for their exemplary and inspirational commitment to our university. I will read the citations, and I ask that each of the medalists please stand as your name is announced. Sarah, please join me at the podium. Scott A. Abel. An exceptional leader driven by a deep love of Harvard that resonates from the Cuyahoga to the Charles. You can correct me on that, Scott. You humbly answered the call to service for the university time after time, thoughtfully building relationships and consensus in a multitude of roles to strengthen the bonds among alumni worldwide. Catherine N. Lapp. Oh, okay. Catherine N. Lapp. Leaving an indelible mark on the university as its chief administrative officer, you deftly steered Harvard for 13 years with grit and determination through change and through storm, fortifying the institution's foundation with your inclusive leadership, astute planning, and unflinching dedication to the advancement of Harvard's academic mission. M. Lee Pelton. Whether at Winthrop House or Willamette University, as a Harvard overseer or overseeing Emerson College, you have been a champion of higher education, from shaping the future of Harvard College, the library, and athletics, to your efforts to enhance diversity in academic institutions, expand access to opportunity, and promote equity and justice. Please join me for one more round of applause congratulating the 2024 Harvard Medalists.
Thank you, President Garber and Ms. Carmone. And congratulations again to the Harvard Medalists. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for. In another minute, we will hear from our 2024 Harvard Alumni Day keynote speaker, Courtney B. Vance, from the college class of 1982. An award-winning actor, producer, writer, and writer. Forgot the "and," my apologies. Courtney B. Vance has displayed true artistic genius, portraying a wide range of real and fictional characters throughout his 40-year career, achieving tremendous success as an actor, including winning Emmy, Tony, Critics' Choice, and NAACP Image Awards. As if that were not enough, Mr. Vance has also founded a production company, Bassett Vance Productions, with his wife, Angela Bassett, and written a powerful book, The Invisible Ache: Black Men Identifying Their Pain and Reclaiming Their Power. Courtney B. Vance serves as the chair of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation and is an ambassador for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Believe it or not, Courtney B. Vance is even more impressive as a human being. He has tremendous depth of soul, thought, and heart, and exudes warmth, kindness, and love, while always thinking critically and asking poignant questions. Without further ado, let's give Courtney B. Vance a huge welcome. Come here.
Thank you, thank you. I had to get some of that pixie dust on me. Wow. It has been, I've been in the business a long time, and I'm no stranger to hearing my credits read, but to have them read here, where it all began for me, when I didn't know what I wanted to do, when I was quite lost. That is very overwhelmingly moving. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. My parents are no longer with me to enjoy this moment, but my sister from the same mister, my heart, my sister Cecily Vance Pension is with me here today, and I'd like to honor her. Cecily, will you stand up, please? And my mother's younger brother, my uncle, is here. Lee Daniels, Harvard class of 71. Yeah, boy. And my inspiration for wanting to go to Harvard. Lee, now you may stand and be acknowledged. Thank you for that, everyone. Can we acknowledge the minor miracle that we are in the midst of? The weather has cooperated. Thank you, President Garber. It is indeed an honor to be standing before you as you shepherd us during this very important transitional time. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Ty Moore. Your passionate, I'll say it again, your passionate leadership has blessed us during this difficult, exceedingly trying year. Thank you, my brother. Hello, alumni family. You all look so good. Give yourselves another round of applause. We have made it another year. Go ahead, clap for yourselves. And finally, hello to everyone live streaming with us. Thank you. Welcome. Hello, hello. That is the end of my housekeeping duties. I can't spend any more time telling you how beautiful you are, how happy I am to be here, because I got 20 minutes and I'm going to get through it. Here we go. Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, intellectual father of the civil rights movement and president of Morehouse College for 30 years, said it best. I only have a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give an account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but all of eternity is wrapped up in it. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speaks to us today, and he says, cowardice asks, is it safe? Expediency asks, is it politic? Vanity asks, is it popular? But conscience asks, is it right? And every now, go on, give it to me, because I'm on a roll. And every now and then there comes a time in all our lives when we must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but we must take a position because it is right. So here we go. My wife and my children know any excuse I have to come back to Cambridge, I'm there. So this past January, our beloved varsity basketball coach, Coach Tommy Amaker, invited me to be a special guest at his famous breakfast club gathering at the Charles Hotel. I was very excited. I got on the plane, checked into the hotel, went to the event the next morning, and sat down at the head table. And it slowly began to dawn on me that Coach Tommy wanted me to close with prepared remarks to lift up the young men and women. I had no idea what I was going to say. I listened to the other three speakers, and I was at a loss. And then ever so slowly, a topic began to formulate in my mind as it had occurred to me that our country and our Harvard community was in the midst of a major moral, political, ethical, psychological, and historical battle of epic proportions that would eventually envelop our own newly inaugurated president, Claudine Gay. And as I was thinking about all that was happening in the world at that time, and all that happened in the world my generation inherited, I heard my bio being read, my name being called, and I stood up and opened up my mouth. I thanked everyone for inviting me, told them how honored I felt that this African-American boy who grew up poor during the riots in Detroit was standing in front of them, charged with inspiring them to greater heights and deeper depths. And the only thing that came to my mind was my dear friend and colleague Romel Witherspoon saying, Courtney, remember the 5 B's. Be brief, brother, be brief. So here we go. I began talking to them about noticing the dichotomy between what they are learning in the college classrooms and on the basketball courts and what they see on their various screens. CNN, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Snapchat, IG, FB, X, whatever else, boo. I said, we are living in a time where things are happening with a quickness on our phones and our tablets. But every 4 years, our voting materials require our signatures to match. Funny, during COVID, cashiers were offering to sign my credit card pages themselves. Charles Dickens' greatest opening line in all of literature rang loudly in my ears. It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. And I challenged the young people, and I said, don't listen to us. I said, we're not doing right. Any child knows that. That's why when children ask us simple, basic questions, we end up with long, rambling answers to which they respond, but why? The but whys. But why are the Russian and Ukrainian people fighting and have been doing so for many years? But why are the Israeli and Palestinian people fighting and have been doing so for many centuries? But why do we teach children sharing is caring, but nations and adults don't abide by the same rule? But why is one of the most popular words in the English language today the N-word? But why in politics today do the ends always justify the means, no matter how wrong we know the situation is? But why are we pretending that there are no emotional, psychological scars we all received during the pandemic? But why do children have the highest rates of suicide? But why can't we talk about our mental well-being? I told them that the world was a much slower-paced world than that, and that is both good and bad, all at the same time. I told them my generation inherited a horribly flawed world of assassinations, Vietnam War lies, Watergate, major city riots, etc. Hell, my Uncle Lee's older brother was one of the leaders that took over the Brandeis administration building in 1969. And we had to slowly make lemonade out of all of that mess. I told them that they are much smarter and have much more information at their fingertips than we did, so things don't have to be as they see them today. I told them they don't have to sell their souls to be successful as they define success. And finally, I told them, technologically, as we move into the AI era, we are doing things, dealing with issues that I can't even begin to understand. But we still have to be able to deal with, engage with, discuss with, argue with, agree to disagree with people. If it wasn't for the people, this would be a wonderful world. You'll get that tomorrow. But unfortunately, our people skills are diminishing as we have gone all into this technological moment. Pastor Adrian Rogers said, there is a high cost to high living. And we are seeing the fruits of that statement today. Suffice to say, there was a lot of discussion after I finished. This is a very challenging time for all people, but especially our youth. It's almost like by the time we deal with one ridiculous thing, the next crazy, unbelievable thing happens. And we all go around pretending like, hey, I'm cool. No, I'm all right, I got this, you got this, yeah, we got this. And we really don't. No, we really, really don't. My father died of suicide 35 years ago, prompting myself and my wonderful, amazing co-author, Dr. Robin L. Smith, this past November, as Mr. Ty says, to write a book entitled The Invisible Ache, Black Men Identifying Their Pain and Reclaiming Their Power. Amazon. My father wouldn't take care of what was ailing him. My father wouldn't let us take care of what was ailing him, but my mother did allow us to take care of her. My beautiful wife, Angela Evelyn Bassett, allowed me to bring my mother to our house, and we went down that long, horrific 5-year ALS road to saying goodbye. My mother died of the disease almost 7 years ago. My family, our family, has no regrets. My father's suicide allowed my mother to have us all go into therapy, thereby saving our family. My mother taught us about the transitions in life. She taught us that there are a finite number of everything in this life: breaths, heartbeats, eye blinks, waking up, going to sleep, etc. She taught us that everything and everyone is precious. I don't have time to hate you, and if you hate me, I'm gonna shake the dust off my soles of my shoes and keep going, because I'm called in this life to help, to be of service. I'm called in this life to be kind, and that is what I am challenging all of you here today as we ask ourselves, but is it right? I challenge you to make choices in this short time we have here on this earth that lifts up your neighbor, your colleague, and potentially your enemy. I'm not naive enough to think that we don't all have our moments. We all get up on the wrong side of the bed sometimes and have to literally tell ourselves not to respond to that crazy cashier. We saw our president stand right here with green dust sprinkled on him and not respond. That's power. Or when that person sneaks into that parking spot that we were backing into, we're gonna let them know that that was not cool. Euphemistically speaking. But I'm talking about those moments when your life or your children's lives spin on a decision and you have to make that right call. I'm talking about when your wife or your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your best friend is in crisis and you have to make the judgment call. We have to practice being intentional. Allen Iverson said, "Why I got to practice, man? We're not talking about a game, we're just talking about practice, man." We got to practice because, as every athlete knows, as you practice, so you play. John Meacham's towering biography on Abraham Lincoln, "And There Was Light," was in no way a whitewash on the Lincoln legacy. Meacham showed him as a man of his times, for sure. Lincoln saw that the Civil War was a situation in which both the North and the South each saw that God was on their sides. So he realized that whoever won the war, God and they were right. There was no middle ground or rational discussions to be had. Emerita Drew Faust, I see you. As I was listening/reading Audible/Kindle, I realized that I had forgotten, in the midst of the death of 750,000 men and the potential destruction of our country, we had a general election, 1864. The blue and gray soldiers returned respectfully and orderly back to their towns, voted, and went back to fighting for another 5 months. They did what was right. There was no stolen ballot boxes, broken voting machines in the African-American districts, no hanging chads. Lincoln's own party, Republicans at that time, actually asked him to find a compromise with the Southern Democrats to end the war. Lincoln was absolutely alone in his refusal / his decision. He said that their party must respect the people and the system and do what was right. Would we be able to have stood our ground under that kind of enormous pressure? The senators and congressmen went to the White House in the spring of 1974 to let then President Nixon know what he was doing was not right and that he would be impeached if he didn't step down. They recognized that their grand experiment, their precious democracy, was far more important than their party affiliation. They did what was right. What will it take for us to realize that we are and have been at an inflection point? When will the phrase, "I've seen worse," ring hollow for us? Our very form of government is at stake. Have we lost our very minds, our very souls? The Capitol takeover was a sign. Will we listen? Have we gotten so free that we are willing to gamble our very way of life on a Pyrrhic general election victory? Whoa, we've done that before. The Republicans in Rutherford B. Hayes struck a deal, and with the compromise of 1877, black people were lynched, burned, butchered, and dragged for the next 80 years. Yes, this is very familiar territory. Only in America can one be convicted on 34 counts and still run for president. The people did what was right in 1864. The senators and congressmen did what was right in 1974. Our time is November 2024. Cowardice asks, is it safe? Expediency asks, is it politic? Vanity asks, is it popular? But conscience asks, is it right? And every now and then there comes a time in all our lives when we must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but we must take a position because it is right. Is this that time for us? A week ago, a recent Harvard grad who was in the audience at the Breakfast Club event I spoke at sent me this email after I had written this speech. Dear Courtney, when you spoke at the Breakfast Club earlier this year, your message about doing the right thing resonated with me more than you may have expected. Harvard has given me more blessings than I can count. It has also made me fight for my idealism. If life is like climbing a mountain, Harvard has introduced me to people who are approaching the summit. They act like shepherds saying, I've taken your path before. Let me tell you what I've seen. They offer encouragement, but also they warn of the unexpected setbacks they faced, sudden medical diagnoses, economic crashes, and most devastatingly, the times when they or someone they loved did the wrong thing. These acts of betrayal by others or by oneself seem to hurt the most. We all want to believe that we are heroes in our own story. These events can rob us of that self-narrative. What troubles me about these events is twofold. First, not knowing enough to recognize whether you're doing the right thing or not. And secondly, whether someone nearby is being charmed by a call of a siren you can't hear. And hardening one's heart is a result of it all. When you came to Cambridge, Courtney, I was in the midst of wondering how to reconcile my idealism with a realistic understanding of the world and the curse of incomplete information we forever endure. I was asking myself, is it possible to fight off cynicism and live with a tender heart? You touched on this at the Breakfast Club, but you answered it as we walked around Cambridge the rest of the day afterwards. You taught me that you can be careful without being cynical, that there is always room for the tender heart. More than just a mentor and a shepherd, you made me feel like I had a teammate in this fight for my own idealism, and that means the world to me. Thank you for everything, Courtney. Liam. And thank you for that, Liam. Thank you for giving voice to all of us who are struggling with our idealism. Continue that fight, knowing that you can be careful and not cynical, as you make room for the tender heart, because in the words of Kayla in The Greatest Showman, I'm not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are, but I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words want to cut me down, I'm gonna send a flood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am whom I'm meant to be. This is me. thank you so much for allowing me this time to share. Be kind. Be respectful. Take care of your tender hearts. Let's try harder to be people of our words. Young people are watching. And remember, whatever you're going through, it has come to pass. It has not come to stay. May God continue to richly bless each and every one of you. Thank you. God bless you.
I know a lot of you have never seen me speechless. That hit, right? I mean, it felt like we were somewhere in between a Broadway production and a church. How powerful, inspired, captivating your address was, and with a very simple but important and impactful message. Let's give Courtney B. Vance another major round of applause. Thank you so much for your thought-provoking and inspiring remarks, Courtney. Dear friends, indeed, no Harvard gathering would be complete without the singing of our school anthem. If you can't remember the tune or simply don't have a musical bone in your body, yes, your neighbor will notice. No worries at all. Our fellow alums from the Harvard University Choir, Harvard Radcliffe Collegium Musicum, Radcliffe Choral Society, and Harvard Glee Club choral groups will graciously lead us in singing Fair Harvard. I don't know if I've ever been to a Harvard Club of Cincinnati gathering where the singing of Fair Harvard was quite that beautiful. So thank you all. So that was a real treat. Thank you so much. Honored guests, fellow alums and friends, thank you for joining us in person and on the live stream for our 2024 Harvard Alumni Day. On behalf of the Harvard Alumni Association, thank you so very much, Harvard alums, for all you do to stay connected to this expansive, special community. On the count of 3, I would like you to please stand up, do your happy dance, shout, cheer, give your neighbor a high five, and/or raise the roof, and join me in celebrating all of our Harvard alums. 1, 2, 3, woo! Harvard alums, thank you, thank you, thank you. We will reconvene next year on June 6, 2025. I now hereby declare the 2024 meeting of the Harvard Alumni Association adjourned.